Hey guys, this is Gwen Lazarito here, and today I'm actually dedicating this video to all the fresh grads out there. I know, May na, and you already graduated by March, but that was the same time na nagka-COVID-19 outbreak, and naglisod ang the whole Cebu, the whole world was actually having trouble trying to figure out everything. And now Cebu is on lockdown and nanami sa balay, and it's just so crazy. Things you don't need to know and don't need to worry about. So I digress. Let's start with the financial tips. Actually giving you financial tips for when you're going to start working, and this also is great tips for those na bag-usad sa workforce. So let's get started. Tip number 1 is to know how much you have. Yes, that's very important because your take-home pay is actually different from the money nga imuhang negotiate as your salary. So it's important that you know the exact amount of the money that you are going to spend. Tip number 2 is to track all your expenses. So especially if you're really new, you have to create a budget, but you cannot create a budget unless you know how much you're spending. So make it a habit to track all your expenses and know where your money is going to the cent. You can do this for the next like 2 to 3 months, and after that you should have like a good overview kung asa padong ang imong kwarta. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 would be to make saving a habit. Yes. So ato ang mga ginikanan, ato ang mga teachers, professors, whatever, older people would always tell you to save. So if you're not doing it when you were younger, it's really good to start now. Now, your first financial goal should be to save for an emergency fund. An emergency fund is murag kapoy kay ko. Ikapoy kong storya no, it's actually because I've been campaigning for an emergency fund for anyone and everyone who wants to listen. So that's just me. Again, this is a tangent. Okay, an emergency fund is a stash of money that you set aside to cover your unexpected financial emergencies. Thus, emergency fund. Now, having this will help you retain your current budget so you have enough money and you don't have to resort to bad debt. And that's the whole thing that we want to avoid. It's bad debt. Next is tip number 4. That would be to create a budget and stick to it. So as I mentioned, for tip number 2, that you have to create a budget, but before that, you have to track your finances. So now, after you've already had an overview on where your money is going, you can now start creating a budget. So now you have pretty much a good idea of where and how much you're spending for transportation, for food, for your toiletries and other needs, and even for your hobbies, right? Now, use this knowledge to help you plan a budget. Be mindful lang sa imuhang wants and sa imuhang needs, because that's very important, and you can fine-tune your budget allocation and have a comfortable allowance for both your necessary and unnecessary expenses. So nga nung importante man na, we can't really enjoy our salary if puro sa needs ang atong i-allocate sa atong money, and we can't have a sustainable lifestyle if puro rasad padung sa ato ang wants ang ato ang sweldo. So it has to be balanced. So you have to balance it out and make sure that your budget reflects that. Tip number 5, the last one, is to live within your means to avoid bad debt. It's the last but not the least very important thing. The reason why we start a budget, we start saving in the first place, is to avoid bad debt. So again, not all debts are created equal. There's good debt and there's bad debt, but now we are just going to focus first on avoiding bad debt. Kaya mga bata para ba mo, chara, tita. Because do you know that most millennials, that is, have no savings? And yes, I'm a millennial. It's because we carelessly upgrade our lifestyle to the moment that we start earning, and especially the moment na we get a raise or yeah, na performance bonus. I know how people feel. I know how millennials feel. It's easy to fall in that trap. So there's nothing wrong with upgrading your lifestyle. I think that at some point we are entitled to it, but we need to be very careful and take everything into consideration. Our future goals, our our financial status right now, and our cash flow, to make sure that we're not going beyond our means. Now, those seemingly small unconscious spending milk tea every day will actually hurt your finances, because, well, let's face it, we don't really need to buy milk tea every day. We just don't need to. But that's it for me. Those are my top 5 financial tips for all of you fresh grads out there and katusang mga bag-usad sa workforce. And sa atong mga titos o titas dira nga naa pa ikahatag nga other financial tips that you think are useful, please don't hesitate to comment down below of any financial tips that you'd like to share, or if you have any questions for me, feel free to comment down below. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. But for now, I'd like to leave you with this message that your best life starts when you decide. Bye!